Coming up next is a presentation on strategic recommendations, key observations and recommendations from industry survey by Mr. Manish Sharma, partner and leader infrastructure, transport and logistics from PwC India.
It's a pleasure to be part of this conference. Shipbuilding holds a special place in my heart, having been associated with this sector for close to 20 years now. What I intended to do was essentially to drive home a few messages around why we need to really think of shipbuilding as a strategic sector, how others have done it. And this is a message that we have been repeating for years. Sometimes it gets recognized, sometimes it doesn't. But maybe I'll take you through some of those insights. Most importantly, and this is when I was part of the 12th Plan Working Group on shipbuilding, close to 2 decades have passed, and we have been having great ambitions around shipbuilding. We wanted to build a large ecosystem, get a 5% share of the global market, be self-sufficient in shipbuilding and ship repairs, achieve a 10% share by 2020. And you must be wondering, why 2020? Because this is something which was there in the first half of this millennium, early 2010. So we had ambitions. We were looking at building a very robust ancillary base and shipbuilding repair base, develop R&D and design capabilities, and create massive employment. Somehow, these short-term piecemeal approaches did not work in seeding the shipbuilding ecosystem in the country. We had interventions between 1981 till 2007 where we provided price subsidies, and especially when it was extended to all yards between 2002 and 2007, we saw that the shipbuilding share, India's shipbuilding share in global shipbuilding went up from barely 0.01% to around 1.25%. And then it dropped dramatically. It dropped dramatically for account of various factors. We never built the ecosystem of ancillaries, suppliers, the scale that was needed. All of that was not seeded because of the short-term nature of these policy efforts. And that is where, if we look at it today, 98% of global shipbuilding still resides in 3 countries, China, Japan, Korea. China started around the same time as we did in the early 80s. We started in 1981 with our shipbuilding support scheme. Today, they have around 60-65% share in the global order book. Japan, Korea are not far behind. They are at a distance, but they are still a major shipbuilding nation. The rest of the nations have never really appeared. And that's interesting. This gives rise to the question, why is it that as the industry started migrating from west to eastern part of Asia and developing economies, it only concentrated in 3 countries and not distribute itself equally across all geographies. It started concentrating. There were reasons behind it. There was ecosystem support, there was policy support, there was a lot of fiscal support available, which enabled it to happen. If I look at the headlines today, we are in a situation where it starts becoming a little jarring. The Chinese shipbuilding capabilities are well talked about, but so is Japan, Korea. They are moving up the curve from simple vessels to building complex vessels, cruise, LNG ships, defense vessels. They're churning around aircraft carriers at a much faster pace than today we are churning around. South Korean yards, Japanese shipyards are setting up new benchmarks in productivity. I think these are the kind of things which happen when there's a sustained growth of the sector. And that sustained growth has to come on account of a host of measures. And therefore, we need a mindset change here. Shipbuilding needs to be treated as a strategic industry. It's a strategic multiplier industry. We need long-term planning, therefore. It can drive heavy engineering sector growth. Just what light engineering growth we are seeing in the country, driven by automobile sector. So what automobile is to light engineering, shipbuilding can be to heavy engineering. And it is of vital importance for defense, as evidenced by China and other countries. It also has a very interesting play into India's Make in India initiative. The manufacturing goals of India, they haven't changed in the last 15 years. We still want manufacturing to be around 25% of GDP. We are barely, 14 to 16% range. We want them to generate additional 100 million jobs. We want to increase depth in manufacturing, create significant domestic value addition. We are talking in terms of enhanced global competitiveness of Indian manufactured goods. And then we are talking in terms of sustainability of this growth. All of this is significantly achieved. So shipbuilding can slip into India's manufacturing ambitions like it will fit as a glove. So we saw tripling of growth in those 5 years between 2002 to 7. Shipbuilding today is known to generate one of the highest employment multipliers. There are multiple reports around it. I would put it between 4 to 6. There are reports saying it goes as high as 6.5. It has a massive externalities, massive positive externalities, linkage to cutting-edge ancillary sectors, whether it is engine assemblies, whether it is related to electronics, whether it is related to precision engineering, tooling, and power engineering. And then it has also got the new drive, that's a tailwind coming on account of the IMO regulations, which are driving it towards more sustainable, green shipbuilding technologies. It is also a sector which has unique challenges. It is unlike any other manufacturing sector in the country. It does not have any protection, or maybe very modest protection. So a ship owner in India can buy a ship from anywhere in the world. That can't happen with most of the manufactured products. So we need to create an ecosystem for shipbuilders in India, which is replicating what is available to players elsewhere, whether it is in terms of having a largest share of the global ship orders. Today, shipyards find it difficult to win orders. They need to have a credible history of having built ships. So you need to break into those bigger ship categories. They need to have ability to price themselves competitively, leveraging on supply chain efficiency, leveraging on technology efficiency, and not just on cost efficiency. And then we need those massive ecosystem, which are clusters, which are now being defined, which was available always in certain other countries of the world. And this is important because there have been multiple studies which have been highlighting that this sector can produce an outsized impact on the host economy, which is India's economy, due to the high capital injection and employment generation. It needs an upfront investment. It requires long-term sustainability in that investment, whether it is building docks, whether it is buying those machines, large equipment, huge land area. And these are expensive assets. You need longer time frame to get return on your investment. The 2025 policy is therefore very important. Unlike the piecemeal policy of the past, it has come around with a host of initiatives, whether it is with respect to focusing on financing of the shipbuilding segment, whether it is with respect to enabling the ecosystem of ancillaries to come up, and providing policy and regulatory clarity. It is overall around 70,000 crores, but shipbuilding has a decent share in the overall scheme, around 20,000 crores, plus the financing support which is available to the larger maritime sector. I think it's important for us to recognize that we are in the nascent stage of shipbuilding in India. We need to hit the mature stage. Unless we get there, the ecosystem which we keep talking about will never come. And others have done it. When Korea entered shipbuilding, and I wanted to show these two graphs for Korea and next I'll show it for China. Way back in 1958, they came up with the National Shipbuilding Mission. In 68, they crystallized it. And thereafter, over the years, they continued the support. When Korea became a member of OECD, they had to withdraw direct subsidy support, but they continued indirect support. Whether it was through M&A support when the shipbuilding cycles went down, whether it was through assuring cargo for domestically built ships through their public sector entities. All of that was done over the years. So the support did not drop when the shipbuilding fortunes change, and the fortunes do change. Today, the shipbuilding cycles are anywhere between 9 to 11 years. It used to be 20 years earlier, 6 decades back. And they are compressing. We are also seeing different class of ships coming up with different cycles. Today, we are seeing that the bulkers may come up in high demand. A few years back, we saw extremely heavy ordering of container ships and liquid vessels. Bulkers were sidelined, and they will come back into play in a big way. Likewise, it happened in China. It started at the same time, mid-80s, with India, like India. They kept on supporting. And some of the biggest things that we discovered was It was export buyers subsidy, which was offered to Chinese, to buyers who were going to build ship in China at around 2.6%, when the Korean and Japanese yards were getting financed at 4 to 6%. Indian yards were at 12%, 13% at that point of time. And then there came the VAT refund, around 17 to 20%, and a host of other hidden subsidies and support. I think subsidy is a bad word, but when you're treating an industry as a strategic industry, you need to recognize that you are trying to differentiate. Are we also going to be somebody who also played or somebody who dominated? These three countries are dominating. We are one of the also playing, and we are practically a marginal and fringe player. There are certain players who are growing very rapidly in India. Not to take away the credit from that. Sahaj is here. We have been talking about it for decades. But we need to take the scale to a completely different level. And I think this is where the 2025 policy is very smart. It smartly aligns with what others have done. It's a sensible thing to do. If they have done it, why can't we do it? Okay. Number one, it's a decade-long policy instrument. And I would ideally want it to be more than a decade, maybe 2 decades. But then governments will take that call at appropriate point of time. It has a financial support mechanism in place, which was exactly what China adopted over a long-term period. It has got infrastructure. Chinese yards have all external infrastructure funded by the government. In fact, that is the policy for the entire manufacturing sector. Let the government take the risk, which the government is capable of. Let the private sector take the risk, which private sector is capable of. And today we see them doing it in every sector, not just strategic sectors. The link with recycling, very important. We are one of the largest shipbreakers in the world. Okay, we are trying to move away from very dirty shipbreaking to environment-friendly shipbreaking. And this is happening in case of shipbuilding also. Why not link the benefits that players can get by coming to India, by linking it to an incentive mechanism? And that's where the shipbreaking credit notes come in. China has the same policy, scrap and build, a long time back for its inland vessels. Industrial goal was obviously there. And then the naval linkage, I think that's something that we keep missing. The naval linkage was very much evident in China. I recall reading a very detailed report about saying it has a very large inland transport segment, riverine and coastal shipping. It has around 5 billion tons of cargo moves. India moves around 120 million tons, so we are way behind. It's a large vessel fleet. That vessel fleet requires to be replaced, requires to be refurbished, requires to be built afresh. Their specifications are designed with Chinese defense military inputs in mind. As a consequence, they will never allow a non-Chinese player to participate in that segment. And that's a huge market which opens up for the shipbuilders in that country. That's some of the mechanisms which we call the hidden support. It's not very explicit, but it is still hidden and it's available. And then localization. We are talking in terms of 30% localization. A massive study has been done around this. There is close to 30 to 35% cost challenge which comes on us, whether it's financing cost, which I talked about, but also when you are not getting orders as a large series, as a shipyard, you are buying the different components. It's essentially an assembly industry. You're buying different components in piecemeal basis, whether it's the engine assembly, whether it is your accommodation units, whether it's propellers, whatever it is. When that happens, you're able to negotiate a good price. You're able to get just-in-time deliveries, vis-a-vis today importing, storing it, and then using it. Inventory costs go up. I think those are the kind of challenges which we are trying to solve when we look at a strategic industry. And the key would be speed. Key would be the steady policy in long term and friendly implementation. It is an interesting graph. This graph shows that China started seeing the ancillarization happening in its country when their share in global shipbuilding went up to 5%. So we are today 0.04% or 0.06%, somewhere around that. I think that's what we need to call for. Can we be there in the support enabling mechanism for at least 15, 20 years till we reach 5%? That's when the ancillaries will start feeling it necessary to start setting up home in the shipbuilding clusters. Till that time, we'll be hugely dependent on importing and assembling. And these are the kind of messages. Finally, if we have to take away, besides bringing policy certainty, besides bringing long-term steadiness, I think we are talking in terms of modernization. Some very interesting pieces of work have been done in terms of saying how do we benchmark Indian shipyards to the world's best in class around their process benchmarks, around the technology being adopted, around the productivity being adopted. I think those are kind of challenges which Indian shipyards are still trying to solve for. Fleet expansion and leasing models, flexible charter models, scaling the GIFT IFSC, it's a good start, but it needs to scale up rapidly. The civil-military fusion framework, I think that's an important one which we need to start focusing on. Co-development of OEM design facilities. Focus on sustainability. I know there's, Chocolats have done a great job in building sustainable ships, but that's one player. Can we talk about 100 players out there doing it? That's an important one. And then focusing on capacity building. The productivity of Indian, despite low cost, our productivities are way, way below what we are seeing in Japan and Korea. Even China is moving up the curve. I think that's one of the massive challenges which need to be solved for. So these are kind of way forwards. We need to look at it, and we need to make sure that as an industry, we should not look at it as an opportunistic segment, but as a strategic segment. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. I request you to stay back on stage as I request our Director General, Mr. Sandeep Khosla, to present you a token of appreciation from the Chamber. A huge round of applause for Mr. Manish Sharma. A lot of key takeaways on the way forward.